Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report, a company update from Founders Metals. We are chatting with Colin Padget, President and CEO of Founders Metals. Company is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol FDR, on the OTC markets under the symbol FDMIF, and the Frankfurt Exchange 9DL0. What we're going to be talking about in this interview is an exploration update, some drill results that were just released yesterday, April 23rd, as well as a scientific publication on this Antino project. This is the project that Founders Metals holds in Suriname, as well as a new addition to the board of directors. Just as a note, I will be posting the map of the project. It's one that I post on the back of every interview that shows the size, overall scale of the project, as well as the main target, since we will be talking to a few of these targets. Colin, let's start off with the most recent news again from yesterday, April 23rd. The company announced a drill result that extends mineralization at the Buese target. This is the target in the middle left of the map. It says you extend mineralization over 1,000 meters. You intersected 21 meters of 2.38 grams per ton gold. Take us through this hole and take us through how this hole is expanding this mineralization at Buese, please.
For sure, and thanks for having me again. The Buese model, just to step back and give some context. For Buese, we're there targeting one of the two types of gold mineralization that we see in the project. There, we're looking at intrusion-hosted gold mineralization. And so that's gold basically from surface. There's been lots of artisanal mining in that area, and you can see that in the verified presentation on our website. But looking at the intrusion hosted piece, because that's where you get the typically kind of broad bulk tonnage type numbers. And so, we had in this press release an example is 112 meters of 0.55, in the past 139 meters, 0.33, 110 meters, 0.4, like those kinds of things. On top of that, we've also found some high grade hits. And these are in these kind of shear zones within those intrusive rocks where you get a bit higher grade. We had 20 meters of 7.65 in this release, things like the 21 meters of 2.38, 6 of 6. Those sorts of things are the things that bring up the average of that overall bulk tonnage target that we're after in this area. The step out drilling is what we were really most excited about overall in this project for this release, shows that we have that continuity of the overall structure that's carrying grade, and we're hitting it upwards of a kilometer away from the kind of central core, or the area that had been seen any work in terms of historic mining or in terms of our own drilling and surface exploration work in the past. So it gives us a lot of opportunity to fill that area in and really build that out as a long strike trend. It's also in the direction of Upper Antino, to the furthest northwest of the property. And that's where probably 70% of our work to date has gone in, and we've identified, well, quite consistently a lot of very high grade gold. So connecting the dots between those two big areas is a part of that drilling, but really seeing Buese extend and seeing the potential that represents, it's pretty exciting.
Well, Colin, just building off that point you just made about how, you're stepping out 1,000 meters to the northwest towards the Upper Antino, where really that's been the center of gravity for a lot of the work and a lot of the prior drilling. As you see these two areas grow closer and closer together, or at least mineralization keep extending, are you more interested in trying to extend Buese and just then go back and infill it, or are you actually trying to connect these two deposit areas where you have Buese and Upper Antino? Eventually, maybe there is, I guess what I'm going after is maybe there's some other deposit midway between the two that could be another pit or another center of gravity in an open pit scenario.
Yeah, I think that the latter there is really what I think we'd be chasing. I mean, I'd love to see a big continuous structure that goes the entire kind of 7 kilometers between the two. Realistically, looking at other deposits in the area, what we would expect or like to find along that strike. And there's lots of, I'd say, auger anomalies historically to support this. There's potentially another pit, like you say, or another deposit that sits somewhere in the middle along that trend. Finding gold like we have in this drill hole here and the Buese 25 hole certainly shows us that we're still in that system. That structure is still there. The gold bearing fluids are still coming through those rocks, and it's just a matter of finding just the right trap to give us those big picture, large scale economic grades.
So how do you balance out prioritizing then? Continuing to drill in between these two areas but then also drilling deeper? What is the priority?
Yeah. So on the exploration side, if we're, particularly when we're in this scale of step out, I mean, we're still going to keep the holes relatively shallow unless there's like a logistical constraint or something that has us drill a little bit deeper on a particular drill hole to get to a target area that we want to hit. We're going to keep the holes relatively shallow in the kind of 200 to 250 range so that we can keep moving and covering more ground. Everything so far that we've seen is really projected to surface. And so no point trying to hit it at 400 meters if we can hit it at 150 or from surface if you get really lucky. So the balance there when we talk about doing more deeper drilling, I think that kind of brings me to Upper Antino and what our plans are there here. We've got 2 rigs that are there right now. We've just gotten the second one there, and we will be looking at the kind of 260, 270 meter deep drilling that we've done so far, or sorry, the mineralization right now. We've intersected it down about that depth. We want to that extend. I think a big part of expansion and growth opportunity at Upper Antino is that to depth piece. So, there's value right now in pulling that down to kind of the 400, 450 meter. What we commonly see is these kind of pit depths in future studies and really getting a handle on what's there.
Okay, so pushing the depth component a little more at Upper Antino and maybe scouting out the bottom of what a pit shell would be down around 400 meters. But then for the most part, trying to blanket in and pepper in as many shallow holes as possible just to find out the scale and the size of some of these mineralized footprints. I want to go back to Boise to some of those high grade intercepts that you have in conjunction with the bulk tonnage intercepts, because when you highlighted that whole 20 meters of 7.65 grams per ton gold, you also had 78 meters of 2.35 grams per ton gold in the past, and even this one on the recent press release where you've got the 21.6 meters, 2.3 grams per ton gold. Those are some pretty zesty potential open pit grades. If you have those high grade zingers in there along with the bulk tonnage, are you trying to find a core that you would maybe have as a starter pit area as an idea and vector in on that? Or are you just looking at it as you find these high grade as just things that lift the overall grade profile?
Yeah, more of the high grade things. They lift the overall grade profile, and they're more sweeteners to the bigger picture here because we're targeting this as intrusion hosted bulk tonnage mineralization. Like when we with the drilling, kind of our next phase of drilling or what we're planning to do next year. So there's a few more kind of further afield targets. There's a couple of them that are on the map in the press release too, where we found some interesting grab samples and things a little bit off the main area. But what we want to come back and do is really define how big is this intrusive body? What's the outline of this? And then we can start putting numbers to that in terms of grade and then high grade sweeteners in terms of bringing up average. So it's, less looking specifically for the high grade core, if there is one, and more just understanding what is the total volume potential, what's the scale potential of this.
So on that topic, what does all this mean for a potential maiden resource? You have bulk tonnage areas, you have some high grade areas, you have all these targets around this project, many of them which have very interesting drill holes on them. Give us an understanding of how this could all tie together for some sort of maiden resource.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, Upper Antino is an obvious tick box for that one. But then what we've seen is with the success with this additional drilling is, we want to make sure that when we do that maiden resource, that we're not hamstringing ourselves in any way. It's often a situation in the market if you put out a resource too early. And right now, with the pace of discovery that we've had and all these other things to continue growing, I really think there's a lot that warrants additional drilling before we move in that direction. We want to target a global resource and not just an Upper Antino one. Right now, we see this kind of bulk tonnage or the Buese area as a potential target there, Lower Antino as well. Right now, it's Upper Antino, Lower Antino, Buese are kind of the more advanced areas. And so, pending the ongoing drilling here this year, I'd see those 3 things as likely contenders for being included in main resource. But the scale of discoveries on some of these further afield things, like Van Gogh is 70 plus meters of over 2 grams and mineralization down to 200 meters depth from surface. Like there's some other things that are in the running, I guess. Like there's more work to do on them though. They've seen a lot less drilling than these other ones have.
Well, Colin, just to that point, because you have so many targets, we were joking off mic, you've got your own little golden triangle up there with Upper Antino, Lower Antino, and Boise, and the areas in between those. But you have some of these further afield regional targets that show a lot of promise. Of the 60,000 meters that you're drilling in this program, how much of it's focused on those key areas, Lower, Upper Antino, and Boise, and how much is focused on targets like Van Gogh, Da Vinci, Parbo, Maria? There's all these other targets you could go after. What's the balance between the regional and the high confidence areas?
Yeah, a balance is exactly the word for it. So for the main three, the Upper Antino, Boise, Lower Antino stuff, about half of our drilling is focused on those areas. And we consider that expansion drilling and not so much exploration drilling. I mean, it's still exploration. Whenever you're pushing the limits of something, you're exploring. But the exploration side of it, that can be new targets, that we want to test that are within those areas. Because remember, it's the top left corner of that map, but you're still 6 kilometers from Upper Antino to Boise, so it's still a sizable area. So we've got some targets we want to test that are kind of within that triangle. But then these even further away things to the east, like the Lawas, which are the Lawa areas, furthest east area, we've done a little bit of drilling. And then we've got Parbo, this furthest to the east, kind of immediately east of the Lower Antino stuff, and then Van Gogh, Da Vinci. Balancing all of that, really, it's result dependent for sure. But with the success we've had, we'll definitely be back to basically everything that we've released to date is going to see more drilling. It needs it, basically. We're in a unique position, I feel like, this year where we do have this kind of ability to, keep news flow going, keep kind of building on the things that we do understand, while also having enough flexibility or liberty to get out there and actually test all of these new things. Because it's new discoveries on the property that really, I think, are our major catalysts. And we've seen that with some of the discovery results in the past. And I think we'll continue seeing that this year with other future discoveries.
So in terms of future news, where the drill results that are released next or the next few batches come from, you're already through just short of 15,000 meters. Of the 60,000 meter program this year, where are future results going to come from in the near term?
So we'll have results out from the Upper Antino, Lower Antino areas. That's something that we're working on. And then after that, we'll be getting some exploration results out from the Van Gogh, the Lawa areas. And if we can get there, ideally some of the Maria Giralda stuff or Parbo when we get out to that one. So a little bit all over. And I know it's kind of, like you said, there's a lot of different targets over the property, and in a way that it's honestly a bit of the strategy at this point. Is like we want people to understand that there's a ton of different opportunities here for deposits, new deposits that can develop into something at scale. But we first want to show people where all of these potential areas are. And so the model in a first pass is to get around and test as many new targets and new things that we can, that meet the appropriate geologic criteria, that, have auger anomalies that support them, some follow-up trenching, channel sampling, these sorts of things. But keep testing new things is really the name of the game.
Well, and Colin, this kind of ties into the news that you put out to the market on April 10th, where you were trying to show people just the size and the scale of the Antino Gold Project. Your chief geologist, Vincent Combs, put out a scientific publication, but it really talks about the structural controls of this whole area, really the whole southeastern Suriname, but the Guyana Shield. Like, this is a prolific area. That's why there are so many targets. So maybe speak a little bit about this scientific publication put out by one of you guys there at Founders.
Yeah, no, I was extremely happy to see, just the quality of work that Vincent put in here, but also we were able to get it through the publication process quite quickly. And the big takeaway here, and the thing I love the most about actually having a peer-reviewed, scientific paper out now on the Antino area, is there really is this big picture structure piece to point at. And, you can be zoomed into the deposit scale, the outcrop scale, all the way down to the hand sample or a thin section. But at the end of the day, all of those things wind up connecting, to that bigger picture kind of tectonic, driver for gold mineralization, for the structures that we see that, act as traps or help focus gold mineralization. And his work really does a great job of showing that we tick a lot of the big boxes, actually pretty much all of the big boxes for orogenic gold deposits. The being close as we are to that central Guyana shear zone, which is a many kilometer wide shear zone that cuts all the way across, this part of the continent, being in these kind of tier 2 and tier 3, secondary, tertiary order structures off of that. These are the sweet spots for orogenic gold. And so the fact that we are finding as much gold in the ground as we are, it all kind of connects very well with, the regional structural picture that he's put together here as part of this paper. And the I guess to back up, or one extra point there is Vincent did his PhD actually on the Yao gold deposit. It's about 10 kilometers from us. And so he's been able to take, what is now many, many years of just, having his head in the rocks and understanding the area and, compile it into something that can, I think, be used not just for our specific area, but, it adds context to, the Guyana Shield and certainly the Guyana Shield and Suriname as a whole. And, it's these sorts of pieces of information or data sets that are, I think, very valuable to, big miners or other explorers that want to get into a new region.
What have you seen in the region in terms of not necessarily you, Founders Metals? You're very focused on this Antino project. It's a big project, but any other action in and around you, any really thing that we should know in terms of other companies that are active?
Yeah, so I mean, the other guys that are out there right now, you've got obviously Greenheart Gold, the spin out from the Reunion Gold guys. So Justin Vandertoorn runs that, Dave Fennell involved. So they've got a number of properties in Suriname as well as a couple in Guyana, starting with things that they're looking at earlier stages and really building value and using, basically what they've proven themselves to be able to do, and that's find gold deposits. So definitely worth checking out their website. The other guys are in Miata Metals. They're not that far away from us. Well, in geologic terms, I guess not that far away, about 60 kilometers northwest. They're along that same central Guyana shear zone that clips the bottom of our property. So they've just gotten rolling in the ground. I think they've got a drill turning now as well. So yeah, those are the two new explorers or newest explorers. Then beyond that, we've seen a lot of pickup in, I'd say, the activity of the two majors. Zijin certainly doing a lot of its own exploration, both inside and out of its concessions. I mean, the other one is Newmont. I think Newmont's been a lot more active in country as well. We've seen, they're exploring outside of their concessions, looking at things. So all that together, I mean, it's a much busier space than it was 2 years ago when we got there. And there's lots of private things on top of all of that. So yeah, it's extremely noticeable for sure.
Well, and Colin, one more question for people that are not geologists, neither Corey or I is, and a lot of the audience is not, but with orogenic gold systems, the positive is that you can have a lot of gold, you can have really high grade areas, but the negative or the knock against them sometimes is they take so much drilling. They're more drill intensive than other systems. So maybe simplify it for our listeners. An orogenic system will always require just a lot of drilling, but also what is the prize that you're going after here?
Yeah, it's a fair comment, and the prizes can be huge. Orogenic gold systems make up some of the biggest gold deposits on the planet, and you look at the systems just here in Suriname. You do need more drilling to really define them, to really understand grade distribution, etc. But the saying for orogenic gold deposits is that they grow. Both Marion and Rosebell started as 2 million, or in Marion's case, much, much less ounce resources. And now, Marion's produced and on the books to produce numbers over 10 million, and Rosebell has been well north of 10 million for a long time. So, these are things that they can start small, but if you're in the right rocks, the geology is there, the structures are there, and the fluid's there, then it does come down to it's drill, 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 but you could define something really, really massive.
Well, your company is drilling a lot too, so we'll follow up as we get some more results. Final news release we should touch on real quick is new director, Barry Macdonald. Give us a little bit of Barry's background, please, and what he adds to the team.
Yeah, so I was really happy to have Barry join the team. Barry brings a lot of senior accounting experience, 35 plus year partner at a major firm, and coming in as chair of the audit committee and just adding to that oversight component. And I think just we were a pretty early stage company that's been growing really quickly, and he kind of adds some of that corporate governance and accounting experience that certainly I wanted to see as part of founders going forward. It's part of building to where we see ourselves going.
All right, Colin, thank you very much for this update. Again, everyone refer to that map that I post in the show notes, as well as click on the link to go to the Founders Metals website and send us any questions you have for Colin. We will be following up as more drill results continue to be released from that 60,000 meter program. Colin, thank you very much for the update.
Thanks very much.